Hello, racing fans, and welcome back to the channel for another episode in the series. A little bit different this time. I am delighted to be joined by French expert Adam Mills. Adam, how are you? Are you well?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Joe. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. I've been trying to get you on for some time, haven't I? And it's been a few things my end that have sort of stopped us, but I'm really glad that we've got you on now. And like we said, we've had some big purchases recently, so plenty to talk about. And I suppose this time of season, Adam, you're very excited to start seeing the crops sort of hit the racetrack. It's been a busy year for you.
Yeah, really busy. I don't think we're quite lucky that we didn't record this in October when we first spoke because so much has happened in the last
Yeah,
6 weeks. And even yesterday, Dan Skelton he didn't just open the checkbook, he ripped it into a million pieces and wrote so many out. But it's kind of, this year is just mad. I think we're getting close to sort of 85 confirmed transfers over the summer. There's probably another seven or eight that I still can't find, haven't been confirmed. The previous best on the list was in the sort of the mid 50s. So it's kind of, it shows you how many. I mean, there are so many 3-year-olds. The Triumph Hurdle could divide into two divisions. They can't all win, but it is just a mad culture at the moment. I mean, you saw yesterday the Arcana horses in training. So, even though it's a little bit unique with some of the horses, it's still like everything in that list is going to a national hunt yard in the UK or Ireland. Everyone wants to buy the next Sergino. Everyone's looking for that lossy mouth filly in a 3-year-old race or toy, or they're hoping they're going to find Jay DeGrugy in an AQPS race. And it's this kind of, there's this excitement about French racing, which is kind of how the point to points were maybe 10 years
mm,
ago, that
mm,
everyone thought we're going to find the next star. But French breeding is on the up and up, and it is absolutely exceptional. But it doesn't make things easy when you write a recruits list, because every day I go, right, I'm going to finish the list today. It's done. Start a new one for next year. And then you go, oh, there's another 5 there that are going to run this year. So you have to reopen it and go through it all. But it's mad, but it's great because that's why I love French racing, because I can say, well, I saw that first. And that's really my kind of gauge into
yeah,
it, is I can look at a race or toy and think, that could be a Willie Mullins horse, or that might
yeah.
be nice for Vicky Henderson. And some of them end up that way.
Why so popular this year though? Do we think it's because of quantity of quality, or is it simply like you said, uh, agents and owners trying to get ahead of the game potentially?
Willie Mullins has entirely changed the game. If you went back 15 years ago, Tom Malone, Paul Nicholls, and before that, even Martin Pipe used to buy a lot in
Mm,
France out of claims and things. The old guard had this sewn up. And if you think about a horse like Corto Star, for example, I think he had 10 starts in France. Long Run had a whole season in France before he was sold. And then Willie Mullins went, well, sod that. Never mind the French prize money. Let's just go and get the best juveniles. Let's go and get the really good 3-year-olds and let's build a team around it. And he's really set up. It's not just a case of Willie going and his team going to Toy and going, that's nice. There's all the research. There's a whole network of agents, of people watching the gallops, of stables and breeders who let him know what's coming along. There's a real research. They look at the sourcing. They look at the trainers. It's no coincidence that trainers like Daniela Mallet frequently sends horses to Willie Mullins. You've got Hugo Marianne, who used to be Willie's assistant.
yeah, yeah,
He's making great waves in France. Gabeline does supplies a lot to Ireland. Everyone in the French breeding game has that dream of, you know what, if I can breed a Sergino or I can breed a Lossymouth, not only am I going to raise my own status as a breeder, but I've got the stallion, I've got the broodmare.
yeah.
And it is this culture that everyone wants to send horses to the best trainers in the UK. There's a flip side to this, which is that what's left in France by the time they get to 4, 5, and 6, the pool is very shallow. And as we've seen, the likes of Losange Bleu,
Mm,
Hermes Bay, Thelem, they've really dominated, particularly French hurdling, because there's probably only 2 or 3 150 plus horses left behind. But what's happened is everyone's looked at Willie Mullins' model and gone, yes, this works.
yeah,
Some have more success trying to copy him than others, but I think it's no coincidence that this year Dan Skelton normally has 1 or 2 French recruits on the list. After yesterday, I think he's at 12.
wow,
So I
yeah,
think there has been a shift there. And the one thing the French do better than we do is they breed precocity. A point to point horse you'd think will peak 7, 8, maybe 9 years old. A French horse will peak at 5 and 6
yeah. Okay,
because they're schooling at 2,
mm,
jumping hurdles at 3, sometimes going chasing or at 3 or 4. That breeding and progression means that as an owner, you're going to get a return quicker.
yeah.
Doesn't always mean they last to the age of 11, 12, or 13, but if you make an investment in a French horse, you're going to know what you've got a lot sooner.
Yeah. Is there a fashionable sire that a lot of people are leaning to in the French ranks, or do you believe it is performance based regardless more than anything these days?
It's a little bit of both. You've got
Okay.
the sort of established names. You've got Cocorico, you've
Yes.
got, say, the Saints, the more established ones. But then what you've also had in France in recent years is a real trend of 3 and 4 year old hurdlers going to become stallions. Goliath de Burlay would be one, Nirvana de Burlay, Paradiso. In the last 2 years, the champion 3 year old in France, Jigme, and last year Nietzsche Has, who won the finale at Chepstow, have both gone to stud at 3,
Wow. Yeah.
having jumped hurdles. So there is a switch in recent years that certain sires have been sent to stud as 3 year olds or in their 4 year old season when they start stallion duties.
Mm.
But within that, they're also getting a lot better mares than you might expect a first season stallion.
Okay.
So Goliath de Burlay is a good example. He goes to stud. And you look at his first season roster and you think, blimey, you've scored well here, son,
Yeah.
compared to others who perhaps haven't achieved as much. But there has been that shift. There's also a big shift in terms of some of the flat sires that have been there. Zarak is a very good example
Yeah.
that
Sure.
he's
Sure.
becoming more established, but he started covering AQPS and National Hunt Breeds.
Okay. Okay.
And there will be that switch. The Stallions are going to continue to build a roster. Leon de Burlay this year has gone to stud. If you look at his pedigree, it all ties in. There'll be a continuous Stallion roster, but what you'll find, I think, is in 5 or 6 years' time, the turnover of Stallions will be much higher. So
Okay.
whereas we've had times where the likes of Midnight Legend, Westerner, Milan, they've dominated for 10, 15 years. It might be now that the National Hunt Stallions in France have 2 or 3 years at the top, and then the next best thing comes along and
Interesting.
replaces them. It'll be fascinating to see how the likes of Jigman and Nietzsche Has do. But it's Nietzsche Has is a great example of a horse that was bought as a 2 year old to go hurdling at 3 with the specific aim of making him a National Hunt Stallion. Cornwall tried
Interesting.
it this year with a few sent to Old George. It hasn't really worked, and they sold them yesterday. But you can see the logic. If you can get a son a walk in the park to win a graded hurdle in France, he's a stallion prospect, and you continue the line. So the French breeders know that they are at the absolute peak, and they have the most desirable horses.
Yeah.
How long it goes for the bubble burst, who knows?
Yeah, that's interesting because, like you said, for example, we've got Walk in the Park over here who's producing horse after horse, but he's covering hundreds and hundreds of mares. But what you're saying is if you can actually get a progeny of Walk in the Park that starts off their career quite well, you could probably make more of them as a stallion and effectively bring more talent through onto the roster effectively.
Yeah, and you're kind of ensuring that bloodline, which is
Yeah. Okay.
to a certain degree is copied from the Ballydor model, where the sons of Galileo and various
Yes.
others have gone to stud. And this is the kind of idea to it, but it's also trying to get as much precocity into the bloodline as possible. So if you can get a horse that's a very talented grade one winning 3 year old, send them off to stud. The chances are that if you give them the right broodmares, you can get another 3 year old 3 or 4 years down the line who'll do the same.
Interesting.
But it is a real switch in terms of people often think of National Hunt Stallions. It's kind of like you're either a failed flat stallion that was too slow and your progeny need 3 miles, so you have to be a National Hunt Stallion, or you have a really long established bloodline. Now there's a lot of new kids on the block. There's a lot of options for you when you've got a broodmare. There's a really good band of AQPS broodmares coming through as well. French breeding's in a really great place, but the
Yeah.
thing to remember is there'll be an enormous number of really precocious 3, 4, and 5 year olds who, by the time they're 7, are done.
Yeah. Okay.
And the best
Interesting.
example of that I can give you is Brave Man's Game.
Ah, yeah.
Brave
Fantastic.
Man's
Yeah.
Game's French bred, really good horse, brilliant performance in the King George, nearly won a Gold Cup, finished.
Yeah. Who's
He's
he by
9 years
Brave
old,
Man's
he's
Game?
done.
Is he by Genefique?
I believe he is, but let me just double check that for you. My mind's gone a bit blank for a second. But if you look at Brave Man's Game, so
Yeah.
he's now a 10-year-old. He's by Brave Man Sonien out
Okay.
of Genefique, who was the
That's it.
broodmare.
Sorry. Yeah. I said
But
by.
you kind of he was highly precocious and it just fell off. And I think there's a real good link there that this is something to bear in mind. And this
Yeah.
is what Willie does really well. When you look at Willie Mullins, yes, if he's got a really precocious 3 year old juvenile, they're going to be campaigned for the Triumph Hurdle. But if you think about a horse like Salvatore Mundi, wasn't really ready, couldn't get him right. No panic. We'll wait. We'll wait. We'll go novice hurdling. We'll get him right. And now he starts to look like the finished article.
Yeah.
Album Photo was another Willie, really minded Album Photo, managed to win 2 Gold Cups.
Yeah.
If you
Okay.
push too hard with certain 3-year-olds, the bubble will burst and their brain will blow.
Yeah.
And it
Okay.
is really delicate balance.
It just shows how important the novice campaigns are for these sort of horses, then, in that sense as well. It's
Yeah.
they're novices for a reason. Give them that education to effectively fulfill that potential rather than running them or racing them or training them too hard in their early days and then leaving them necessarily not a lot to build on, which we do see. Is there a progeny that you are in favour of, Adam, yourself, or is that not really your side of things? Or
I
or even
tend to,
or even one that's been doing well that you've noticed, hang on, this is a nice sire here coming through, like a Bomac de Hooley.
yeah, see, Bomac the Hall, they're very straightforward types, but actually his win ratio is not great.
Okay,
And,
okay.
and maybe I'm a little bit scarred because last year I thought Willie de Hall was the second
Sure,
coming. I
sure.
really thought that nothing will beat this horse. And it didn't quite work out. But then that made me look at his stats and you start thinking, actually, your strike rate's not that great.
Okay.
I'm not sure they're that brave in a finish, but they do know how to jump.
Yes.
For me, I really like Goliath de Burle. I think he's going to be a real superstar. I think his first progeny took a little bit of time to hit the ground, and there's one or two that were sort of high profile flops. I think that'll work. I'm a big fan of character. I
Okay,
think his
lovely.
progeny, they have a tendency to be a little bit fragile, but they are really smooth travelers. They really jump. You don't often see them with too much headgear on.
Yeah, yeah.
I like the straightforward types, but I also think if you're coming out of France, I want you to know how to jump
Yes, of course.
because Ortoy is fixed brush hurdles still. So you've got to jump those or they hurt.
Yeah,
But the problem is if you can't jump those and you come over here and you jump one of these silly padded things that we
yeah,
jump
of
now,
course.
that definitely doesn't hurt. And then they learn bad jumping habits.
Right.
The one other thing I would say is I'm always careful. I don't like horses that are sold to the UK and Ireland that have jumped fences in France.
Interesting.
You will,
Okay.
if you watch a French steeplechase, it's more akin to the Cheltenham cross country. They jump a double barrier, they jump a bank, a brick wall, a hedge, primrose. It's not as straightforward as jumping park fences. But what can happen with that is they learn the habit that they can crash through the top of most of those fences.
Okay.
And some of them are
Okay.
even designed, the double barrier, the second last or toy, it's a hedge. So you can crash through it. You're not designed to go over it. But then they get over here and they jump a park fence at somewhere like Newbury and they'll belt them because it's you've our jumping it, our steeplechasing is much more emphasis on the jumping.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes why I'm very cautious. If a horse has jumped a fence in France, it takes a lot of schooling to get that habit out of them.
Okay. Okay.
And that's just one sort of caveat that I have. The French go steeplechasing at the age of 3 if you want to. So if they've jumped a fence, for me, immediately I'm kind of like, okay, that's going to take a bit of caution and that's going to take a bit of
Interesting.
time to adjust.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. I hadn't actually thought. Well, I didn't even realize that was an angle, but it's like very interesting because if they haven't got the physical attributes or the mentality to get over this, it's a completely different ball game for them when they
Yeah,
get over here, I suppose.
it is. The only other thing I would say is if you're studying French form, it's really important to understand the going readings. It will say heavy ground, very soft, good to soft, good. He hardly ever says good to firm. But French going readings are just different to ours. They use a different set of measurements. They use the penetrometer rather than the going stick. The simple way to remember is just to deduct one. If it says heavy, that means soft. If
Okay.
it says very soft, that means good to soft in places. Good to soft is good. Good is probably good to firm. If it says very heavy, then that
Yeah.
is probably unraceable in the UK, but they
Sure.
will race on anything in France. But it's just to bear in mind because people go, oh, he went on soft ground in France. And like, well, if the
Yeah.
penetrometer said 3-4, that's not soft. That's
Yeah.
more like good to soft good. So it's just something to adjust to that the French just have a different way of reading the going to what we do. But
Interesting.
most French form is just put through a Google translator and posted on whichever website it's on. So it takes a little bit of knowing and it took me a long time to learn that. But when
Okay.
you do and you start to look at the times, they compare a lot better.
Interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. Very because, like you said, a lot of people will say, "Oh, this horse handles soft ground. We've seen it in France, but it's completely different." Whereas I've started to look at sort of the physicality in a horse a little bit more, especially if they're going to be juveniles going to Willie Mullins' yard, for example, and they're going to need to be tough to handle the gallops there. You don't want them to be broken, for example, too early. And there was a horse I liked. Unfortunately, he's out for the season. Lord the Board by Cocorico, obviously we mentioned, but he
Yeah.
that him as a sire just seems to be real producing like real hardy sort. So I like that sort of angle when they're going to yards like Willie Mullins, and I'm sure he must obviously be aware of what he's buying and take that into consideration himself, because there's a lot of juveniles that go there and then potentially don't fulfill their potential. St. Lucci was a bit of a prime example, and maybe
Yeah.
Leda Vega Alen as well. Pedigrees are okay, but seemingly found the transition to Irish racing much more difficult, than you'd have expected, perhaps, really. Um,
Yeah, yeah, they do. It's also very difficult because Willie, if you look at Willie Mullins' history, and there's this kind of myth that Willie has a long-term plan. Well, not always. If you look at his juveniles, most of them are winners. They're
yes.
once race winners. And if you look at the horses that have been successful in the Triumph straight out of France, right, Sergino would have won the Triumph, in my opinion. One race in France, one win. Madgeborough won on debut in France. Cargis won in France. Calixios before that went to Gordon. He won in France.
Yeah.
Lossiemouth won on debut. Vauban was a winner on the flat. Willie is buying winners. So when he's thinking about the Triumph Hurdle, they're recruiting horses that have won or gone very close because he thinks, right, you're ready now for a Triumph Hurdle.
Interesting.
But
Okay.
the problem is, people also know that. And so quite often you can watch a debutante's hurdle at Auteuil and you'll think, well, the winner's been ridden out the front, absolutely given the run of things, allowed a sight at his hurdles and been booted home. That probably means one, he was absolutely right, fit, and ready for the day. Secondly, it probably means he was for sale and they were trying to make him look as good as possible.
Yeah.
And thirdly, it probably means someone's already looked and said they're interested.
Yes.
Sometimes, if you think about certain races, which we'll come to in a minute, the beaten horses in behind just weren't ready. And
Mm.
it is important to remember that often a lot of horses will make really impressive debuts, and sometimes they'll make impressive debuts for Willie. St. Lucie is a really good example. I thought she
Yes.
was brilliant on debut, really good on debut. I think it was at Punchestown, travelled beautifully, jumped beautifully, didn't go on. And
Yeah.
it is just sometimes a kind of okay, if the horse is absolutely prime fit as a 3-year-old, is ready to go, how much more improvement is there? Whereas if you think about Madgeborough, yes, he won on debut, but the form of the race he won took a long time to work out.
Okay.
He got beat in the Spring Juvenile by Cargis, but he had much more improvement in him, and that's why he ultimately won the Triumph. It's very rare to find a horse like Sergino who just goes £7 better every time he runs.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a huge number that get to the end of their 3-year-old season and they've plateaued because that's what they are.
So there's a lot of trust needed with these agents, from Willie to the agents to the current owners
Yep.
and trainers as well, to try and identify how much that horse has done, and again to be open to the fact they may or may not be open to improvement then when they obviously join the
Yeah.
new yards.
Yeah. It is. I don't want to call it gambling because that's not right, but it would be educated guessing.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, if you've got one piece of form and you've got to make a snap decision within 24 hours, because if you don't buy that horse, someone else will.
Yeah.
You've got to go on your instincts more than you can go on the form. We can do speed figures, we can do time analysis, form analysis. You can slow the video down and watch every single jump. You can try and work out which horses were ready and which weren't. But ultimately, you're making a guess.
Yeah.
And you're making an educated guess that says this. This time last year, I thought there'd be two horses at the head of the Triumph Hurdle market. One was Willie the Hall, because he broke every rule in the book. Arnold Shy is an autumn trainer, won on debut in March. Beaumec the Hall cantered through the first 3-year-old race of the season. Looked a superstar. The Richies bought him. I thought this is the second coming.
Yeah.
The time was electric. He pulled clear. There were loads of winners in behind. The fourth went to Henry and won on debut. I was like, here we go, son.
Yeah.
16-1 cash out. And he never went on. The other horse was Sauvignon. It was a
Yeah.
listed winner in France. The half brother to a Group 1 winning Prix de Moulin horse. Sauterne's half brother, Sauvignon. Paul Nichols could barely get that horse to raise a leg, let alone
Yeah.
finish. So
Yeah.
it isn't that straightforward. And what happens is there's great news stories all the time. Everyone goes, oh, isn't Lou Lambert wonderful? Wasn't he a brilliant jumper yesterday? Yeah, well done for buying Lou Lambert. That's a magic piece of business. How he got beat by Poneros, no idea, but he did. But Lou Lambert's brilliant. Sergino's brilliant. But for every one of those, there's also horses that just think about Stormheart, Bunting,
Yeah.
big
Yeah. Of course.
reputations, win on debut, can't do it. So it's a massive risk when you buy a French horse. And I am glad that my job as an analyst is to provide the data and not sign the docket.
Yeah.
Because I
Of
don't know how
course.
some of these lads sleep at night with the pressure they must be under when these horses make their debuts.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But it's nice as well that we've got some potential stars, obviously, as every year come through this year.
Yeah.
But you said the list this year, Adam, is much bigger than it has been and recently, and I'm sure there must be some standouts for you, which I'm sure we can get
Yeah.
onto to in a moment. Shall we start going through some of the runners now? Shall
Yeah.
we start with Narciso Has for Willie
Yeah.
Mullins and JP? What can you tell me about him so far?
Well, let's start with Narciso Has because he is the talking horse. And the reason he's the talking horse is firstly, he's joined Willie Mullins and he's joined JP McManus. That would probably make him a talking horse anyway. But he won the Pre-Wild Monarch de Poulons. Why is that race important? Well, because Salvatore Mundi won that, we ran in
Ah,
that race.
okay.
And even more importantly, Sergino won it. So everyone goes, oh, well, if it's the same race, it must be the same horse.
Yeah, yeah.
I've got some stats on that race I think are fascinating. Now, the first thing to say is Narciso Has was electric. Absolutely knew his job. Slow jumps over the first couple, but he just got better and better the more the pace lifted. Pecked on landing a couple of times, but nothing serious. And then really, once he got into the home straight, got the stands rail, one ease down. The time was slower than the standard, but
Okay.
the important thing is the ground was soft. It's officially recorded as very soft. 4-1's probably about soft ground our term, so that's quite good. Now the form in behind something special. A couple of winners have come out of it, but it's not amazing. But Narciso Has was the absolute superstar. He won the
Mm.
race doing handstands effectively. When you think about the winners of that race, so let's think. Sergino's won it. Paradiso's won it. He won a grade one, went off to stud. Bustleton, Joseph O'Brien's
Yeah,
won
yeah,
that race back
sure.
in the day. But there's a lot of horses like Middle, Moccolato has, Kaluka, Le Coeur des Hommes. No one's really heard of those names.
Mm.
Whereas if we talk about the horses that were beaten in the Pre-Wild Monarch, Salvatore Mundi was beaten in it, obviously by Sergino, Footpad, Device won a French Gold Cup, Botox has,
Yeah.
Gaelic Warrior, State Man. They were beaten because they weren't ready. So it's not always the winner that turns out to be the best horse. Now, look, Narciso Has is very good. He won a race in April. They've got no reason to hold him back. They've got to press on. There's no novice status to protect. He should be towards the head of the market. But Narciso Has is probably one of 25 once raced French horses. Probably 20 of those are winners. Well, they can't all be superstars. So to assume that because he won a race in the spring and that race has a recent pedigree, he must be a superstar, it's open to question. Willie's got so many. I mean, how does this race planner do it? Because you've got all these 3-year-olds, they've all won, they're all going to carry penalties. You can't have them all in the same race. It's going to be madness. Narciso Has should be towards the front of the market, but I'd argue that there are others who've at least achieved as much as him, and yet the Ante-Post has them 2-3 times bigger.
Interesting. That is interesting. Yeah, absolutely. But again, he was one of the first sort of to come on the radar as well. I feel like one of the
Yeah.
first big names mentioned, so it's quite easy, like you said, to potentially get carried away with those. And um, but he's an interesting horse nonetheless, and obviously just one of abundance of sort of JP horses fought this season. We will move on to another JP horse, but this time with Nicky Henderson, Manlager.
Yeah.
A popular sire, obviously, at the moment, Maxios, who obviously has Gaelic Warrior and plenty of other nice horses coming through. What do you feel about Manlager then in that case, Adam?
Manlager's interesting because she won the Pre-Auricular, which is the first 3-year-old fillies race at Auteuil of the season in March. And when she won the race, the agent who bought her was on the Nick Luck Daily Show a couple of days later, and he went, "Oh, by the way, I've just bought this filly for 400,000, whatever it was, and
Okay.
she's going to run for Nicky Henderson and JP McManus next season." So straight away, people are like, "Oh, blimey, we've just run the Triumph Hurdle last Friday, and you've already
Yeah,
bought next year's."
yeah.
She's a half sister to Marta Tor of Venetia Williams. Comes from the Roland yard. That's really important because in the last 2
Okay.
years, the Roland team have trained the champion juvenile in France. Jigme in 2023, Nietzsche has in 2024. They know how to get one ready. What's the form worth? Well, it's a little bit patchy. The race developed perfectly for Manlager. She was very keen, took her time to get her feet right, but she was faster than the boys' race. The sprint for home began, and she really asserted, cantered clear. The second is a horse called Manita, who's joined Willie Mullins for the Richies. The third pulled up on her next start, got injured. We haven't really seen her. But the fourth is really interesting, Olga de Kiev. Now, on the
Oh
day,
yes, yeah, yeah.
Olga de Kiev was given a shocking ride. I don't know whether it was just an education, but my goodness, she was miles back. Came flying through, finished fourth. She's gone on to win in Grade 3 company. She's had a really good season. They tried her in the Grade 1 on Sunday against the boys. It didn't really work. She finished sixth. No shame in that at all. But she sets a fair standard. Manlager was a lot better than her on the day, although she'd be a good example of a 3-year-old filly, probably wasn't ready on debut and has improved. The form and the history of this race works out quite nicely. So there's certainly a lot to be excited about. I think it's important to note, though, that she wore a hood and a tongue tie on debut.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
That's one of my massive pet hates is when French trainers put the tongue tie or the hood on, both of which is fine, no problem with that. But then they come over here and the British or the Irish trainer takes it off.
Yeah,
Leave
sure.
it on. If
Sure.
they put a tongue tie on, leave it on. So just something to keep an eye on when she does make her debut. I suspect that she was for sale. Well, I know she was for sale. They sold out. But that hood was probably there just to help her relax. Whether Nikki chooses to keep it on or not, I'm not really sure. I don't think you can learn too much from one run. She looked very calm and composed to me in the closing stages. She's another one who should be at the head towards the head of the market. She's with the right connections. She's going to get the right education. But I kind of take the view that the French season splits. It's February to beginning of June at Auteuil, summer break, and then we come back September to November. I'm taking the view that the early season form, because there are a couple of high profile sales, the market formed around them. Because in July, when the first Triumph Hurdle market is priced up, no one knows about everything that's being bought in the autumn. And I sometimes think these horses can end up at the head of the market when there's really no reason for them necessarily to be there. So it's just something to bear in mind that when we were first talking and writing about Manlager and Narciso Has, we didn't know about anything else. We only knew about 7 or 8 races at Auteuil. Some of that form is a little bit patchy and behind. There's lots more that have come out in the autumn. And I'm going to take the opinion and nail myself to it that the autumn form is better than the spring. And if that's true, then probably there's more value in the autumn horses than there would be in those in the spring. I'll be right or wrong. We'll soon find out. But it's just something I think to bear in mind. And I think it's significant that more of the winners in the autumn season have been bought than the winners in the spring.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a few other wise heads who thought, yeah, let's wait and see what else we can get later in the season.
Yeah, a bit of patience may be the key to some of them.
Yeah.
It's interesting you said about Manlager. They're wearing the tongue tie in the hood, especially on debut. Must have some sort of keen going nature at home as well, you'd imagine.
I would have thought so. I would have thought so. I didn't, it didn't, I don't, none of my notes suggest like she wasn't unruly in the paddock. She didn't
Okay,
look hard to
okay,
control. But I do wonder if maybe she was a bit free, a bit fresh, a bit
yeah,
precocious, and they thought, well, we'll stick the hood on, particularly if they're thinking we're trying to cash in. We'll stick the hood on because that'll
interesting.
keep her calm. It's not necessarily a sort of set pattern, and some trainers will take the hood or the headgear off when they get over here, and it doesn't really affect them. But it's just something to bear in mind that actually, if she raced in a hood on debut and they take it off, it might be a case they need to put it back on later down the line.
Yeah, okay. I know she had a racecourse gallop this morning at Newbury. They had the sort of first gallops there for the Coral Gold Trophy. So I assume she'll be out in the near future, and hopefully we'll get a bit more, get to know her, I suppose, a little bit after that first one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think she's in the top 3 juveniles Nicky's got. I
excellent.
was kind of thinking Nicky will probably go the same route he went with Sergino, which is the juvenile hurdle on the 27th at Kempton. If she won that, there's a Triumph Hurdle trial
Yeah, sure. At
that
Cheltenham.
at Cheltenham in January you could run in. But it's also important to remember that she's a filly.
Yes.
So there is always in the back of the mind of like, if she's not a Triumph Hurdle horse, they can reroute to the fillies program and get the black type building up.
Yeah.
Plenty of options.
Lovely. Thank you very much. We have Macho Man, also with Willie Mullins. I'm not
Yes, we
sure
do.
with Munir and Suede or JP. I'm not sure actually on this one, Adam.
Macho Man is Joe Donnelly, according to my
Okay,
sources.
okay. No, that's fine. You're probably right. I've taken a quick stab at those. That's all. So you're probably right.
I believe so, but it's one of those ones that you kind of. This is the problem with when horses go to the UK, you have to go on the BHA website and register who the
Yeah,
owner
yeah,
is and where it is. In Ireland, you don't need to do that until they
yeah.
run. So it's, I don't know. But there we are. But yeah,
It's
no,
there
Macho Man's
somewhere.
important. Macho Man's very important because he won the Prix of Kildare, which is one of the newcomers races run at the start of October. Race has a really good recent history. Gust of Wind won it. Jazzy Matty was 5th that year, went
Oh,
on to
okay.
win the Boodles.
Hmm.
Last year's winner was Live Conti, who developed into a really smart juvenile for Dan and Harry Skelton. I think Live Conti is going to prove to be a sort of champion chase type in the future when they get him right. I think this year they're keeping him over hurdles from what I've read. But this year's race I thought was really good. The time figure was excellent. But the reason I think it was really good is because everyone was swarming around this race. And the first two have been sold to Joe Donnelly. According to my sources, Macho Man has gone to join Willie. The second is Feel Gut, who's with Nicky Henderson. The fourth is a horse called 4050, who was beaten favourite on the day, but 4050 has also joined Willie Mullins.
Wow.
Looked a really good race, but Macho Man was miles clear. He
Okay.
was fantastic. Travelled like the wrath of God. Didn't hardly put a foot wrong at all. Gab Leenders is an absolutely master trainer at schooling his younger horses. They really know how to jump. It wouldn't surprise me if this lad had done more schooling than anything else in the field because he jumped so well. Theo Demouche barely had to push go, and then when he got into the straight, kicked clear to win by 5 lengths. I really like Macho Man. I think he's a really nice son of Ivanhoe. I just got that feeling from him, like there's a touch of class about this performance. It was very similar to Live Conti the year before in the way he went through it. The fact that they were prepared to buy horses that were beaten comfortably by this lad would suggest to me that everyone thinks he's got a bit of ability about him. And he's a good example, really. If you look at the prices in the market for the Triumph Hurdle, Narciso has is right at the front. Macho Man is much bigger, and yet to my eye, they've achieved the exact same thing.
Yeah,
they both cantered through a debutante's race and won it by 5 lengths. Ruby Walsh gave the horse a really nice mention in one of the jump season previews that he looks good. He needs a bit of time to adjust. When you buy a horse in the autumn, it's not as simple as just chuck him in the box and run him next week. They've got to acclimatise. So we probably won't see him before the DRF.
Okay.
But if all goes well in my head, he's got to run in the Spring Juvenile at DRF.
Yeah.
That's where we'll find out.
Yeah.
But no, he's exciting. Macho Man is one of those ones that I'm like, come on in, lad. Let's see what you can do because the debut was exceptional.
Yeah, it's interesting. You said they're happy to buy the runner up in the third as well. They see the substance there, like you said, to see. And I like it that we may not see him until, like you said, potentially the Spring Juvenile, because it has worked out really well in recent years, like you mentioned with Cargese, Majborough, and I think Stormheart was even third potentially that day. So definitely be nice to see how they turn out. And Macho Man clearly won for the Notebook. Okay, Proactive next up then. Adam, did he come from Daniela Mele as well?
Yes, one of so many from Daniela Mele. It's kind of like, I'd imagine Willie just has his own horse box in the yard. So I'll just load that one up. Here's the check. No, I mean, Proactive is interesting because he won the Prix Fino, which is the newcomers race in the middle of September. Why is that interesting? Well, he won it by 6 lengths like the others did. The second is a horse called Apollon de Charny, who's also gone to Willie Mullins.
Oh, wow,
it's this kind of, what I'm looking for with these horses is not just what's their performance like, but it's kind of like, well, if Willie thinks this is a good race, he's bought the first 2, or his team have bought the first 2, they must think this is a good race. Proactive just cantered through this. Really nice performance, strong travelling type, hit the second last and just went and go. Away I go, pulled nicely clear. Another one where the time figure was pretty decent. It's a fascinating meeting because this is kind of the first serious card that we get at Auteuil in the autumn season. Proactive won the Colts version. The Phillies version was actually a little bit quicker, which was surprising, but Marskina won that. We haven't seen her since. But the second in the Phillies race was trained by Gab Leenders and bought by Willie Mullins. There's just this pattern that they're at these meetings and they're looking at all the nice 3-year-olds and they're buying all the best ones. I would have Proactive maybe 3 or 4 pounds below Macho Man, but no more than that. Really nice profile. Another one of these once race winners that could be anything. But my goodness, that Spring Juvenile is going to be a good race to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So you feel like he showed a nice turn of foot for the ground and things like that as well?
Now he's slightly different because they raced in September. Officially, the ground is described as very soft. No chance. Absolutely no chance. I would say it was good to soft in places at worst.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a big differential there because of the way it's described. The way he finished the race in his closing sectionals, to me, you can't do that if it was for truly very soft ground.
Interesting.
So we don't really know with him how he will handle soft ground. Now, he may be fine. He's by Mars Marvel. There's no obvious reason to think that he won't handle it and that there'll be any problems. But you kind of look through the pedigree. He's a half brother to Le Remontada, who was sort of listed class in France, but there's nothing sort of exceptional on this lad's page. It's not like
Mm.
you're going through it and finding 3 or 4 Grade One winners.
Yeah. Okay.
So he doesn't fit the usual profile of kind of half brother to 2 horses Willie trained
Yeah.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
He's a little bit different, so he might slip slightly more under the radar than most.
Okay. Interesting pedigree, like you said, by Master Marvel. They do tend to be quite hardy sorts that do enjoy that ground. Obviously, Tia Hooper being the main example. Do you feel a lot of the time, again, pedigree will be something that Mr. Mullins would like
Oh
to,
yeah,
you know, the long
yeah. That, that,
bloodline, consistency
that
through.
I think they'll always look at that, and they'll also look at the breeder. What's the breeder produce? What's the trainer produce? Daniela Malay every year, 2 or 3 sold. It's that kind of pattern.
Okay.
But it's
Okay.
also really kind of, I think they're more looking for, when it comes to the jumps pedigrees. When Willie buys off the flat, a lot of the time, I think some of their flat purchases, Vauban's always a good example, but Absurd would be another.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're kind of looking for sort of, is there a horse here that's got loads of improvement that just isn't suited by French racing?
Okay.
And that's, Vauban was a real exception because he's just proven to be a superstar in either code. But the likes of Absurd, not really suited by French racing, where flat racing particularly is quite slowly run, develops into a sprint. And it's no surprise that Absurd goes up in trip in a strongly run race in the UK. He can win a county hurdle. I think he won
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
Sussex champion hurdle for what it's worth, but he's also run well in the E-Board. It's those kind of scenarios they're looking for. Whereas on the jumps, yeah, whilst pedigree is important, I think sourcing's the key.
Yeah.
Let's look at
Okay.
the breeder. What do we know? What do we know from the gallops? What do we know about how the trainer prepares them? Daniela Malay, there's a really good system you can follow. Quite often, Daniela Malay will run 2 or 3 in the race. If they win it, the second and third string will be further back. But the chances are it's probably the winner was ready to go today and it was for sale.
Interesting.
The
Yeah. Yeah.
second and third will come
Okay.
on and take more time. So it's a really good system to look out for. But I'm always conscious that I know for a fact Willie has a really good relationship with the Malay yard. And if this horse won on debut and was sold soon after, that must be because all the vibes are good.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't really think of that. Like you said, the order that they're sort of finishing as well. Would there be a sort of jockey priority list as well with the French racing? For example,
Um,
if Townend's on a Mullins horse, you go, well, there's your number one, for example. Or
not not necessarily. There are some trainers who'll pull
Hmm,
rank. So Francois Nicole will like Kevin Nabe on for certain rides. Um, I always look for kind of, I think with Noel George and Amanda Zetterholm, if James Reevely's riding the debutant, today's the day. They
okay,
think this horse is
okay,
ready. With the greatest of respect to Theo Gofinek and a few others, if James Reevely's not on board, maybe it's another day. But it's also kind of understanding the sort of the way the French racing system works and or toy. Probably you're in a 3-year-old race where half the trainers have no idea what this horse is capable of. They're running in a debutante's race, and if it goes really well, they might lose the horse. It might be also taking time with. I don't tend to look at the pecking order too much, but I do like horses that James Reevely's ridden because I think they get a fantastic education on their debut. I really like horses Felix de Giles has ridden. I
okay.
don't care if it finished 10th. Felix de Giles will educate the horse, will get them jumping really well, get them in a really smooth rhythm. It's no coincidence Arnie Frost has done well in France because
Okay.
being a
Yeah.
judge of pace is more important than anything else. It's not about strength or tactics. It's about knowing how fast they're going. And if you thought of Bryony in a heyday in the UK, sort of riding Frodon,
Mm,
what she was great at was getting in front on Frodon and dictating the pace. She does really well on that in France. It's just a difficult thing to cover because the jockeys are kind of they don't have the same. Here you might have your favourite jockey and you might look and think, well, everyone kind of looks at Harry Skelton at the moment and goes, well, just how many times are people doing Sean Bowen and Harry Skelton multiples?
yeah. Yeah.
You don't have that in French betting because it's PMU, it's tote only. You might have your favourite jockey, but it doesn't mean you're going to be able to back him in roll ups or anything like that.
Yeah.
So there isn't the same emphasis. It's also
Interesting.
important to remember that the best jockeys get the rides at Auteuil, but there are loads of really good jockeys who ride in the provinces on a Sunday that you won't
Mm,
often see that give good educations. I'm most interested in the training yards.
yeah. Okay.
There are certain trainers. Hugo Marienne's a fantastic lad. used to be Willie Mullins' assistant. Gab Linders can always get his horses to jump no matter what they are. And if you think about Gold Tweet is a good example of a horse
Yeah,
that
of
Gab
course.
Linders has really turned into a good type, was third in the Grade 1 on Sunday. Obviously, you've got the old guard. I shouldn't really call them the old guard, but Guillaume Macaire, Francois Nicole. The Noel George is there now, making a lot of waves with Amanda
Yeah,
Zetterholm. Dominic Brassu. There's such a big pool of horses and trainers in France who can all train, who can all bring horses on. Not always the household names that we think of. But yeah, Daniela Malay would be right up there. If I think this is a horse who might go to Willie Mullins, one of the first names of me, well, that must be Daniela Malay. It's
yeah,
got to have come from that source, probably. And
yeah.
you can tell that by the way they're ridden.
Daniela Mille, your favourite trainer, do you think, over there based on quality of the horse?
Uh, no, I have a real soft spot for Hugo Marianne,
Do you?
who
Okay.
was when I started working in French racing, started doing some content. He was the first trainer I interviewed. He had a runner in the
Okay.
Adonis at Kempton. But actually, when you speak to Hugo, you realise you're just Willie Mullins Mark II. It's a
Yeah,
smaller
yeah,
operation in a different country, but it's this approach of Hugo's a really patient. He had a horse called Saint Donats a couple of years ago, won the Grade 1, was actually favourite for the Triumph when he got injured. But when you look at Saint Donat's campaign, it's like he started in Dieppe in the summer. Well, that's the equivalent of starting a Triumph hurdle winner at Newton Abbot in a June. I love Newton Abbot. What a lovely racecourse. But you
yeah,
wouldn't run a
sure.
Triumph hurdle horse there in June. And that's what
Yeah,
Hugo did because he knew my horse needs good ground and a jumping test. And it's those kind of things that I look for. It's just fascinating because you can go into so much detail. There are trainers like Geniala Monato whose strike rate's terrible, really terrible. Not in this country you'd say a 5% strike rate. That's no good.
okay.
But actually, you look at the number of horses that training yard sourced to Ireland. They're given really good educations and
Mhm.
underlying numbers. There's huge numbers that have finished fourth, fifth, sixth on debut. They just get better and better
Yeah.
because the prize monies in France is so good. You don't need to be a target trainer. You don't need to hook them to get a
Oh,
handicap
right.
mark.
Okay.
You can
Yeah,
just
yeah.
run your horses on their merits, and that's why the form figures are less important. I'm always looking for what's the prize money per race, how have they been campaigned.
Interesting.
Auteuil is the only Grade 1 track. But if you've got a horse that's not good enough to win at Auteuil, you could probably still win 100,000 with a decent horse if you campaigned it in the right
Interesting. Does it worry you then if you find a nice horse that's won at Compiègne or other tracks?
way. No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, it's just because Auteuil has the Grade 1 races and is the only track with Grade 1 races, the best horses generally run at Auteuil, but that's not always true. Calixios is a great example. Made
Okay.
his debut, very first 3-year-old race of the season at Compiègne, won that, went on to win the Triumph. Vauban didn't run at Paris Longchamp. He won a listed race on the flat at Vichy. For Philippe de Couz,
Interesting. Yeah.
went to Willie Mullins. Jade de Grugy won a nothing race in the provinces, really, that you couldn't even bet on it. It's only on course betting, a PMH meeting,
Yeah.
effectively running in a bumper on a point to point course. Goes to Willie Mullins, turns into a really good horse.
Yeah.
Doesn't worry me in the slightest because it's kind of I just try and treat it on its form. Obviously, Auteuil form is better than anything else, but
Generally, sort of thing.
generally, but
Yeah.
it doesn't make a great deal of difference to me whether you win a debut at Pompadour on firm ground in July
Yeah.
or whether it's on Sky Sports Racing on the cameras on Sunday. It's all about what the horse can do and where it's come from.
Interesting. Before we go on to the next horse, Adam, I just wonder, could I ask you what your thoughts are on how Noel George is getting on over in France as well? Obviously, we know he's more than capable trainer. Obviously, you've got LA France and plenty of other nice young horses. Um, where does he sort of rank amongst, your Daniela Melees and things like that in France?
It's a delicate balance for Noel. Very good training operation, very good at winners. Their strike rate's good. They do well with their 3-year-olds. They do well with their 4-year-olds. He won the big Grade 1 4-year-old hurdle at the weekend with its winner clock. He's obviously had success with Ile Francais. If I was being harsh, I'd say he needs a little bit of media training. And
Okay.
sometimes Noel can be drawn into the clickbait statements.
Okay.
We've all heard some of his comments on Ile Francais, and you think, well, if you look at the track and look at
Yeah.
the horse, how does that compare? Stencil's a good example that
Oh.
was
Hmm.
built as unbeatable in the Boodles, and yet you're looking at the French form and you look at the way he finishes the race and thinking,
Yeah.
where's the disconnect? They will be towards the top of the training ranks. It's
Interesting.
taken a little bit of time. The move for Ile Francais to Tom George, I don't really understand.
Yeah.
I,
Okay.
I, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it because it had the horse moved to Willie Mullins. I go, okay, fair enough. I get that.
Sure.
If you'd moved it to Nicky Henderson, I go, yeah, all right, it makes sense. To move it to Tom George, I'm kind of like, well, what's the logic here?
Yeah.
Now, the move to the UK makes sense because Ile Francais struggles generally over fences in France. And also, we all know that the King George at Kempton is the be all and end all for him. There's no obvious place to get him ready for that in France because you either go to Auteuil,
Sure.
running one of the big graded races on really heavy ground where you've got to jump massive fences, anything could go wrong. And we saw that last year. His prep run at Auteuil, Puntos Ganamos came alongside him because Felix de Charles knows you're a bit soft. If I eyeball you for the lead, you'll sulk. And he pulled up a fence later.
Yeah.
He does bleed. He's had his issues. I'm of the opinion that he's a very talented horse, but that he is the moodiest horse in Grade 1 chasing. And if I can back that up, because constantly when he gets a soft lead, he looks magnificent. And if you think about last year's King George, I laid him in running, and I was thinking, oh, Christ, I can't get out.
Yeah.
Jump into third last, but we're in real trouble here.
Yeah.
But the minute he hears Banbridge coming, the only time he makes a jumping mistake is at the last, when Banbridge is alongside him.
Yeah. Okay.
He doesn't like other horses. Could he win another King George? Absolutely. Because he could get a soft lead. But if he does get a soft lead, the other jockeys need to look at themselves. Because I think if you eyeball him, you'll beat him. As we saw in the Ryanair. They had to try Cheltenham. It was never going to suit. The minute Factor Files alongside Ile Francais, I'm done.
Gone.
It's down. Yeah. In answer to your question, I really like Noel George. I think sometimes he needs to let his training ability do the talking.
Okay.
Because
rather than
as we've all done. Look, I do social media. This time last year, I went on another podcast and I went, Willie the Hall on the day will be 6-4 in the Triumph Hurdle. He was 40s.
Yeah,
and people in my family are constantly reminding me, going, I remember when you said this would be 6-4, and it was 40-1.
We all learn. Those kind of things.
Yeah, you do learn. But so what you have to also learn in the modern age is that everything you say is recorded by someone.
Yes.
And sometimes Noel can talk the talk. Melantino's another example who's now with Tom. Just let the horses do the talking. But the most difficult thing, which I really admire them, is trying to get a French horse to win in the UK is exceptionally difficult. Different style of racing, different hurdles, different tracks, different seasons. It's a minefield. It's so difficult. They keep having a go. They will get one. Eventually they'll get one, and then it'll really take off as it did with Ile Francais.
Yeah, okay.
But it's just about managing the expectations.
It just shows as well, doesn't it, that people are very quick to assume that a horse coming from France will just immediately adapt to our racetrack, to our ground and our fence. It doesn't always happen, does it? But yeah, interesting. That again, it's good. It's given me some more food for thought with regards to Noel George. Okay, the next one we have Henry de Bromhead 3-year-old by Dr. Dino, who is my favorite sire in at the moment. Matan Midi A Soir. Now, obviously, this form has been franked with Leopard de Burlay as well. I imagine this one's going to rate quite highly in your rankings, but again, you may tell me otherwise, Adam.
Yeah. No, he's got to be right up there. He's got to be right. So the French handicapper says he's got a rating of 72 kilos. That would be 144. 144 would be enough, in my opinion, to place in most Triumph hurdles. Now, we need a little bit of a pinch of salt because the French handicapper is rather zealous and will occasionally, as he did with L'Autonomie a couple of years ago when he gave her a rating of 190. That was a little bit extreme. But I think this is quite accurate. And the reason it's accurate is because the best French 3-year-old this season is Leopard de Burlay. Leopard de Burlay won the Grade 1 at the weekend. He's only ever running graded races. He's won all 3 of them by at least 6 lengths on the bridle. This thing's a machine. Leopard de Burlay is the current favourite for the Triumph Hurdle with some firms. Don't take that bet, because it seems highly unlikely that he'll run. Neither the owner or the trainer has shown too much enthusiasm. They might have a change of heart, but it's got to be doubtful. But if Leopard de Burlay is the best 3-year-old, Matan Midi Et Soir is the only one to ever get close to him.
Okay.
He got a couple of lengths behind him back in May in the Grade 3. Admittedly, Matan Midi Et Soir had experience and Leopard de Burlay was on debut, but he got within 2.5 lengths of him. I thought that was a really good run, and he backed that up in September. He won the Prix Robert Lejeune by 3.5 lengths from Midnight Cowboy and Shannon Maestro. Shannon Maestro placed in the Grade 1 at the weekend, so all of that form ties in. But more importantly, Simon Minier and Isaac Swade have a lot of money. I don't know them, but I'd assume from the way they campaign horses and the number of horses they have, they
Yeah,
got a bit of
yeah.
dosh. And yet somehow Rob Corr persuaded them to buy the second highest rated horse in France, send it to Henry de Bromhead. I don't know the exact figure, but it's rumoured to be very big.
Yeah. Okay.
This lad sets the standard, and he's already run to a standard that would be enough to hit the frame in most triumph hurdles.
Wow.
And I would back
Yeah.
that up.
Yeah.
So he's the horse, in my opinion, that everyone in the UK and Ireland has got to beat. What we don't know is how much improvement all these once race winners have got. Matteo Mediat's right. He ran down the last in the grade 3 if you're really picking holes, but he had the race won, did it quite easily. He's gone to Henry de Bromhead, which is a really nice move for him. He's a really well-bred horse. Got loads of speed, loads of ability. He's kind of the safe bet. I haven't had a bet in the Triumph at the moment, but if you wanted a safe bet, you'd think, well, I could back him each way because it seems that he's capable of running to the right standard, and there won't be that many that can improve past him. As long as he adjusts and takes a bit of time, he's got to be up there. And it's just interesting that kind of, if you take the view that I think Leopard de Burlay is an absolute monster, or 2.5 lengths will still make you an extremely good horse. So for that reason, he's got to be on everyone's radar, and it'll be fascinating to see where they go. Having won a graded race already, you're not going to see him in a 3-year-old hurdle with some ridiculous penalty. So I'd imagine he either goes to the grade 2 at Leopardstown over Christmas, or he'll go to the spring juvenile directly. But either way, he kind of sets a very high standard. There won't be that many that can come past them.
Yeah, well, really interesting. I'm glad you said that because he is one that I've sort of kept my eye on through the season with the form, obviously with Leopard de Burlay. I actually fortunate enough to speak to Henry recently. He's not even at the yard just yet. He comes back next week, but he's been away schooling and stuff. So it's like you said, they're biding their time and trying to make sure they find the right race, I suppose, for him. Perhaps that race at Christmas would be ideal. Interesting. Next, obviously, we've mentioned the Scoutons have been spending a lot of money. They've got a really nice horse called Maestro Conti. I don't know much about the pedigree or anything with regards to this horse, Adam. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you have to say about him.
Yeah, I wanted to add Maestro Conti in because I was very conscious this was becoming a Willie Mullins benefit, but also it's that it was kind of it just to show you where else you can get a horse from. So Maestro
Okay.
Conti made his debut at Moulin, which is a really nice AQPS region where a lot of the AQPS breeding operations are. Really good national hunt track. He won by 6.5 lengths. Now look, the form is okay because the third place Bourbon has gone on to finish second in the grade 1 at the weekend. But Maestro Conti absolutely battered them. Comes from Noel George, ridden by James Reevely, great education, sent from the front, knew his job, and he just pulled miles clear. He's from that Conti family. You'll find Sylvan Yarko and a few others in the pedigree. Going to make up into a nice horse in time. I think the most important thing to remember with Maestro Conti is that not only did he win on debut, but he really won.
Yeah.
He won by 6.5 lengths. It could have been 10. He's by Prince Gibraltar, so there should be a bit of speed in there. It's one of those strange pedigrees where the dam was bang average, to say the least. She'd have been rated about 60 on the flat at her peak. But the other reason I put him down is he went to Dan Skelton. And why is that important? Well, because he's a half brother to Live Conti, who won the Pre-Prodigal Day and went there. He's won a race. The great news about horses that win a race is we're going to see them in their 3-year-old season because you've got no novice status. You've got to press on.
Yeah, sure.
The other thing to bear in mind is 80% of the good 3-year-olds are in Ireland. So there's only 20% in the UK. So actually, there's a lot of races to be won with decent French juveniles. And the Skeltons decided to run Precious Man at the weekend at Cheltenham, finished second in the Triumph Hurdle Trial. I think he might have won if he had jumped the last a bit straighter, but he still ran really well. Maestro Conti was £10 above Precious Man on my figures at least.
Wow.
So I think that was a sighter from the Skeltons to think, right, we'll send Precious Man out first, and then we'll bring one of our other juveniles through. I'm waiting for Maestro Conti. Can he win a Triumph Hurdle? He could. There are better ones in Willie's Yard, but he could. But what he could do is mop up some of the British races before we get there. Races like the Triumph Trial in January at Cheltenham, the Adonis, the Summit Juvenile at Doncaster. There's loads of options for him. I think he'll be winning those kind of races. And then who knows? But he's really exciting. He's another one to bear in mind that in 2-3 years' time, he'll make up into a lovely handicap chaser.
Wow. Who's got him at the moment, owner-wise? Do you know? Is it the same as live Conti or
Uh,
I'm
I
not?
believe it is. Yes. Let me just check.
It's okay.
Apologies for this, but there's so many. I sometimes
No, that's
forget the
fine.
right names of this. But yeah, it is. The kind of strange thing is that this sort of habit goes on, whereby trainers will buy one and then they'll go and buy another one, and then they'll go
Right.
and buy another one. Unfortunately, the BHA doesn't actually have his owner listed, which is a bit of
Okay.
a pain.
Yeah,
But
that's okay.
it's just I just thought it was interesting that they obviously had a lot of success last year with Live Conti, and they've gone straight back and seen his
Yeah, that
half
is
brother do
interesting.
exactly the same thing and buy the same one. So
Yeah, it's
he's one to
encouraging.
keep on side, and I like backing juveniles that end up in British yards, the above average ones, because let's face it, Irish racing is better than British racing. So before Cheltenham, good horses win our races, and then the Irish put us in our place.
Yeah, sure, sure. Interesting. Okay, thank you very much. Another nice Dan Scout and filly, Metztar Centaur. If I've said that correctly, I'll obviously put the names up on the screen. What can you tell me about her, Adam?
Well, this is why we're lucky that we didn't record this when we originally planned to in October, because in October we had no idea that this horse was for sale. She broke some records at Arcana yesterday, going for €710,000
Jeez.
to Dan Skelton. Now, this is quite a unique scenario because Simon Minier and Isaac Swade own 50%, the breeder own 50%, are dissolving the partnership. So a lot of horses that might not otherwise have come into the
Oh, okay.
public domain went into a dispersal sale, of which this horse was number one on my list of where is she going. She's been running in the AQPS bumper scene in France, has won two of her three starts. Her only defeat was when she finished second at Song Clou in the Prix de Bourbonnais behind Mondialito de Huez. She was beaten a length and a quarter. Now, Mondialito de Huez is my idea of the best 3-year-old AQPS flat performer in France. The Prix de Vienne, which is the grade one for those horses, is next week at Fontainebleau. It's the equivalent of kind of a French champion bumper, if you like.
Right,
And
okay. Yeah.
he's going to be long odds on for that. And I'd be very disappointed if he doesn't win. And yet she's the only horse to even give him a race. Got within a length and a half. Now she was ridden to do so. She was given a more patient ride and came through, but she showed a really good attitude in the finish. I thought Stefan Pasquier gave her a really good ride that day. She then went to the Prix de Tremblay, which is the grade three at Lyon at the end of October. That's a race with a bit of history. It was won by Elixir Dane and Delta Work a few
Oh,
years
okay.
ago. Valsalido also won that. So you do get really good horses winning that go on and develop into nice types. It wasn't a very strong renewal by any means. It was relatively weak, but she won it
Hmm.
by 8 lengths doing handstands. Now, the price is slightly inflated because she is a grade three winner. She's already got black type winning form on her CV. So, as a broodmare down the line, there's a bit of value to be recouped. But still, I was thinking, well, 300, 350 might be a fair price. And they've gone to
Nope.
700.
Yeah.
Really exciting. She hasn't jumped a hurdle yet. Whether we see her straight away or not, I'm not sure. She's had a busy autumn, 3 runs in the space of 3 months. Might do her good to have a bit of
Okay.
a break, and they've got a bit of time. She's really nice. She's by Hunter's Light out of a video rock mare. I think in time she's going to stay a lot further. The Dam was a winner over fences. In the immediate pedigree, there's nothing exceptional, but she's a half sister to 5 winners, which I think is important. And I really like the way she goes through her race. She's got a really good attitude, clearly loves racing, which is
Hmm.
important to me. I want horses that show a bit of attitude that says, yeah, I really want to get on with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's big money because they probably had to go that far. And imagine there were a lot of underbidders.
Okay.
When she makes her debut, she's going to be ridiculously short because the Racing Post write up will say
Yeah. Yeah.
€700,000
Of
record
course. Of
breaking
course.
buy. But she's very smart. And I think if she jumps a hurdle, we will probably see her in a mare's hurdle at some point down the line. I won't be getting involved in trying to be cute and think, could she be a triumph hurdle horse? Because I think she needs a break. And the
Okay.
fact she hasn't jumped a hurdle and been running AQPS flat races probably means she hasn't schooled yet.
Okay.
To
Fine.
turn a
Fine.
horse like this round in 3 or 4 months, I'll be quick. I think she's a horse for next season.
Yeah, and like you said, when they're spending that sort of money as well, they don't want to sort of rush anything. There's no need, do they? Interesting what you said there about finding a horse that enjoys their racing, because I suppose that gives you the opportunity to get the most out of the horse as well, rather than
Yeah.
finding one that's a little bit quirky. And again, when you mentioned earlier about like Manlaga wearing the hood and the tongue tie and things like that, it does add a little bit of a question mark, doesn't it, to how straightforward they are at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's always important to make kind of your notes when you're studying maiden hurdles, juvenile hurdles, French 3-year-old hurdles. Is kind of how hard is the jockey working?
Yeah.
How
Okay.
much effort is going in? Sometimes it's attitude. So Jazzy Matty's a good example. His debut in France was terrible. Absolutely, oh my goodness, he was off the bridle the whole way. The lad on top's hammering away trying to get a response. He finished fifth, and there was this whole rumor beforehand he was the favourite for the Triumph. And Gordon and Andrew and Gemma Brown had already bought this horse, and they were going to win the Triumph with it. And there was this ridiculous rumor that Gordon had flown in by helicopter to go and watch it, and it was all gibberish. But
Yeah. Sure.
you watched his debut and thought, Christ, what is going on here, lad?
Yeah.
But actually, with Jazzy Matty, it was just a case that he was just lazy. And once they got him racing in a better race with a better pace, he went on to win the Fred Winch under a brilliant Michael O'Sullivan ride. But it's kind of, I don't mind that. But what I don't want to see is a jockey that's having to use the stick down the neck at every hurdle, a horse that's jumping left at one, right at another, a horse where they're being wayward or they're running down.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
kind of that's the ones where you think, well, if there's a bit of an issue here and you're not overly keen, that could only get worse.
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
Whereas what I really want from the French one is one where I think, well, there's loads of improvement because you just lobbed around and you jumped and you haven't been asked to do everything.
You're doing everything
You
at
want a
will.
night, yeah. And if you're doing everything at will and you're still winning, they're the ones. And if you watch the best debuts, Sergino, Calixios, Lossymouth, they're the three that I look at and think if you watch their debuts, it was a point and shoot job. The jockey basically
Yeah.
sat still for most of it and went.
Steered.
Lossymouth, Lossymouth was so quick that the jockey just held on and she won. Sergino cantered through it. Calixios was entirely dominant. They're the ones that you think, wow,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you can do that without any encouragement, what will you be like when you've learned a bit more about the game?
Yeah, definitely something to think about and worth keeping on side going forward. Mon Crusade, 3-year-old by Tin Horse. Again, probably a pedigree, to be honest, I haven't heard much about and I'm quite into the pedigree side of things. But again, another one that's gone to Skelton, I believe. No, the Mullins, sorry, this one Mon
No,
Crusade.
yeah, this one's Mullins, and this kind of shows you. I put this one in more because it's just an example of how hard Willie's team work. It would be very easy for Willie to get to mid-October and go, Christ, all these boxes are full. I've got 23-year-olds out in the
Yeah,
field that I've
yeah,
got to prep and get ready. We draw stumps. But they're still going. They're still going. And I saw a tweet on Sunday from the editor of the French Racing Post, Jeu de Galop, and he said, this Mon Crusade, recent winner, is going to be trained for Willie Mullins, running the Gigginstown colours. He's bought another one. I
yeah,
better
yeah,
write about this
sure.
one.
Yeah,
This was a horse I watched win on debut at Nantes. I thought he was really impressive. Nantes is a relatively galloping left-handed track with a stiff uphill finish, and he absolutely loved it. Really travelled to the top of the hill, ran down into the dip, and then when they hit the rising ground, it bang.
gone.
Really lengthened, gone, pulled away, won by 3.5 lengths. We haven't tested the form yet. The time was pretty good. He's an interesting AQPS gelding because he's had one run in a bumper in October. So he is one that they will probably take time with. I think they'll probably throw him into some graded races at the end of the season. If he doesn't win, well, then you can save him like
Yeah,
they did with Salvatore Mundi. The immediate pedigree is nothing amazing, but I just really liked his attitude. He knew his job. He knew what he had to do, and he seemed to relish the climb up the hill. That was important to me. I want to see horses that are really kind of, I'm up for this. I want to go up the hill. I want to climb. I want to
yes,
get better. Lovely finish to the race. And I just thought it's just kind of an example of that's a horse they're thinking in 2 years' time, we're going to have a really nice handicap hurdle. We're going to have a
yeah,
nice chasing prospect. They're constantly thinking and buying horses. It's not just a case of trying to win the Triumph. He's one who probably won't win the Triumph, may not even run in it, but in 2 or 3 years' time, it will be amazing to me if he's not in some kind of festival handicap.
yeah. Interesting. Nantes is a race course as well. You sort of mentioned obviously
Yeah.
some of the main. What's interesting
Yeah.
with
So
flying from there?
yeah, Nantes is an interesting track. Left-handed. It's one of the more galloping tracks.
Okay,
So they kind of slowly climb into the back straight, reach the hurdle at the top of the hill, run down into a dip, and then there's a stiff finish. It's
okay,
relatively rare to get a stiff finish in France. Compiègne's probably the only other one that's really stiff in terms of the climb. But I like Nantes because each of the hurdles and the fence is there on different angles. But in the AQPS flat races, the horse has got to learn not only to come down the hill, but to go back up it. And horses that handle that will handle your Cheltenhams,
Oh,
Leopardstowns, that those kind of tracks where there's undulations. And I think he looks so well balanced that he's going to take to it.
lovely. Thank you very much. Definitely interested in that angle. Like you said, it's a similar aspect. I like horses that win at Chepstow for Cheltenham. If they can
Yeah,
handle the undulations and in the stiff finish, then you probably got quite an educated horse, I find, as well, because they're aware of what they're having to do on the job effectively. Um, Adam, you've left me with two exclusives for the this episode. Which is the first of the two?
well, these are then this is out in the public domain, but it's kind of these are horses that I haven't been able to talk about yet. And
Okay.
the reason I haven't been able to talk about it yet is because they've only just been sold. And when they're only just sold, it's like
Yeah,
bloody hell, this is hard work.
it's not
So the
making it
first
any
one,
easier for you, is it?
it doesn't make it any easier. The first one is a horse called Mercy Mam, who was bought by Dan Skelton yesterday. Now, Mercy Mam won on debut, comes from Hugo Marienne, one of my favourite trainers. He's by character. You can see how I've tied all this
Yeah,
everything
sure.
together.
Yeah, yeah.
Really like the way he went through the race to win at Lyon Paris. Only won by a length and a quarter, but he had much the better form over Boystone. The horse who finished second was Boystone. Now, he had experience having won on the flat. The two of them pulled a little way clear. Just the source he comes from just made me think that's a really smart buy. Not necessarily because you're buying a horse to think, right, I'm going to go and win races straight away. But he's another one. He's going to be a lovely chasing prospect inside. Lots of size and scope about him. He definitely needs to go on the list. The other exclusive, now this is a right gamble. And
Okay.
it's not just a gamble by me. This is a gamble by Dan Skelton and his team.
Okay.
They have bought a horse called the Mighty Celt. The
Okay.
Mighty Celt is a colt by Walk in the Park. He's one of three colts that was sent by Coolmore to Noel George with the view of trying to turn them into
Oh,
stallions.
wow. Okay.
Now, he won on debut back in March. He won the pre-rush. He's got form in listed and graded level. They tried him in the grade one at the weekend. They had a go. James Reevely gave him every chance. Now, the Mighty Celt is an impossible horse to work out. Noel George and Amanda Zettel must have been tearing their hair out because when he's good, he's brilliant. And when he's not, he's moody.
Oh,
And there's
okay.
no right no logic to it.
Hmm.
But what I suspect with the Mighty Celt, he's had 6 starters in France. He's relatively exposed. He's got a rating of 67, which is 134. But I just think he needs a big field and he needs a strong pace. If he's not thinking about it, he's fine. He's been in where he's disappointed is when he's been generally in races where you think he should win this or should go close.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah.
been no pace and he's either had to lead or he's had to take a lead. He's been keen. They've talked around with headgear. They've looked at different options for him. I think that Coolmore have obviously decided to sell their 3 colts because the experience hasn't worked. But I think there's a good horse underneath all of this. I just think he needs a different environment. Now, he's had 6 starts. Dan Skelton might take the view, we got a mark of 134, we'll just roll the dice. Chuck him in something like the Fred Winter and see what happens. Whether they do that or whether they give him a break, I'm not sure. But I just think in the hands of the Skeltons, when he's in British races that develop a lot quicker and have a stronger gallop, he could improve
Interesting. Yeah.
massively.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at his profile and you read some of the backstory, you might think, oh, bit of a pig. Couldn't get him to do what they wanted him to do, and Coolmore have decided to cash in. But I would take it the other way and say
It's
France didn't
interesting.
suit, this will.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. Where did he run at last?
So he last ran on Sunday. He ran in the Grade 1 pre-camper series behind Leopard de Burley. No shame in that. Now, look, James
No.
Reevely tried to ride him relatively prominently. I think all of them were looking, thinking, we can't beat Leopard de Burley. And that's how it ultimately proved. But
Yeah.
the Mighty Celt was in contention 2 from home. And then when James asked him for more effort,
Ah,
it was,
okay.
no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think with him, he will be one of those horses where I could see him 18 months down the line in a big handicap hurdle with 5 horses in front of him and a strong pace where he'll really travel. The Skeltons will get him to be a better horse than 134, but it might take them a year or so to work him out.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Well, there's definitely one for the notebook because I hadn't even heard of that one. So, Adam, thank you very much. I wondered if I could chuck one into the mix. I don't know if you can or can't tell me about this horse because I don't think I've heard anyone discuss him yet. It's a horse called Fort Dino. Um, he's with Henry de Bromhead. Let me grab something.
Yep. So we got a 4-year-old Fort Dino. I've got some notes on him. So
Hmm.
he ran on debut at Dieppe. Now, Dieppe is an unusual place to make your debut, but he was in the race for Hugo Marianne, who had two in the field. He had the
Oh,
second as
okay.
well as the fourth. Dieppe is a flat right-handed track, and it's very flat. It's a good jumping test, but it's flat and tight on the hurdles track. So it's completely the opposite to most of our hurdles tracks.
Yeah, I thought
I
that
didn't
when you said
actually
it.
think, yeah, I didn't think Dieppe suited, but he ran pretty well. He's then gone from there to Auteuil. He's won a class three hurdle at the end of May. Now that's kind of at the very end of Auteuil spring season. So it's a little bit weaker in
Okay.
terms of it's kind of the equivalent of winning a race in April in our season. It's
Yeah.
a little bit the end of the season. The better horses are gone, but he won it really well. Finished 7 lengths in front of a horse called Little Angel de Soy. Little Angel de Soy is now with Lucinda Russell. The French handicapper would kind of rate this race around the third and fourth, who've got ratings of 117 and 124. So if we take that literally and allow for the weights, then he's probably run to a mark in the low 120s. Got a
Okay.
nice pedigree, comes from Hugo Marianne. As a 4-year-old, it's slightly different because as a 4-year-old, he was obviously given a lot of time by Dr. Dino out of a Soldier of Fortune mare. He's going to develop into a nice horse. The difficulty they're going to have is deciding which way do they go because he's had two starts over hurdles. Because he won a race at the end of May, you've still got a novice status, so you can run
Hmm.
in novice hurdles. I kind of think with someone like him, he's probably not good enough to beat the best of the Irish novices as a four rising 5-year-old. But you might still see him pitched into sort of grade three, grade two novice hurdles because they'll always have in mind two more runs on a handicap mark.
Yeah, sure,
And for
sure.
that reason, I think they'll have no choice but to try now he's won a race. And then if that doesn't work out, well, that's okay because we'll end up with a decent handicap mark either way. He comes from
Interesting.
Hugo Marianne. He's going to know how to jump. There's
Yeah,
absolutely no doubt about that. Really nice source, would have been brought on nicely. Good ground could be the key.
yeah,
Maybe that's
okay.
the reason they waited to go. And maybe that's the reason when you look at some of the pedigree, the likes of Starlet de Menil is in there, Sissy de Menil, but the Dam is a half sister to Can Do Kid.
Oh, wow.
So there is a chasing pedigree in there as
Hmm.
well. Quite an interesting type, but a completely different one. Whereas we always think that these French horses are kind of triumph hurdle here and now horses. He might be one that takes a little bit of time, and then you start to see him
Yeah,
really blossom as a 5-year-old.
yeah. Lovely pedigree. Like I said, speed on the size side and then stamina there with the
Yeah,
counter class.
absolutely.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you very much. And I was going to mention it to you before and I completely forgot. So I'm glad you had something there
No
for me
problem.
to discuss. So Adam, thank you so much for your time today. I'm very, very grateful. I am, and I've really enjoyed talking to you about the horses. I could have you on for hours and hours. So it's probably best that we do stop there. But I'd love to have you on again sometime, and I'm very grateful for your time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime, mate. Really enjoyed it. And perhaps we'll have a catch up once we've seen a few of these French 3-year-olds come out.
Yes, there you go. That's a great idea. Thank you very much, and thanks everyone to that's tuned in to the episode. I'm sure you've really enjoyed the content there from Adam. It's always really well received on a wide basis. So, and Adam, where can people find you? You're on Twitter, of course, and it's under GeeGeeBanker, isn't it?
Yeah,
Your name.
yeah. So you'll find me on Twitter under GeeGeeBanker from, well, from this month onwards, but really from next year, all of my 3-year-old notes will be published.
Oh wow,
My backers have agreed that I can put my notes in a public domain. So
okay.
we'll have a free site on Patreon that sort of lists the 3-year-old forms, people can study it. But really, I'm open to any message. So if you want to find me through the website or find me through Twitter, just drop me a DM. And as long as it's polite and doesn't call me any names, I'll happily reply to
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, be nice to Adam. Be nice to Adam.
you.
Absolutely. Adam, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you to everyone
You're
that's tuned
welcome.
in. I really do hope you've enjoyed the episode as much as I have. There's plenty to get stuck into and take away. Very grateful for you all tuning in. Very grateful for Adam, and we'll see you all real soon.